you ever wondered what exactly is a Pinterest VA? Maybe you thought, you know what, I should get a Pinterest manager, but I don't know where to start. Maybe you've heard some really bad horror stories. If so, hold up, you want to watch this video because I have got an amazing Pinterest expert for you. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Natalie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited that you've taken the time to talk with us about what exactly a Pinterest VA or manager does, as well as share some tips and expertise. Because when it comes to Pinterest, you are all about the data and the analytics. So it's not fluff, it's hardcore strategies that you can use to grow your account. And I'm really excited to speak to you because you are literally the gold standard where it comes to like a Pinterest manager. There's a lot of people out there who don't really know what they're doing, pretending and, really hurting a lot of accounts. So I'm really excited to have you here and to share how, Shank Social and you can help, my followers and watchers grow their accounts.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to hopefully put some ideas in their heads that not all Pinterest managers are terrible or like they won't have a bad experience with everyone. You just got to do the research and kind of vet them out and you should be able to find a good one.
Definitely. So I found you because of your sister's account, which you manage, and it's part of your whole backstory, right? Like it's how you fell in love with Pinterest, like so many of us do, and it becomes like a whole career, right?
Yeah, exactly. I started with her about 4 years ago. She started a crochet blog where she designs crochet patterns and has them on the blog. And so she has, it's makeandocrew.com. And so she has free crochet patterns. So we kind of started her Pinterest account, and when her blog kind of blew up, she realized she needed a little more help with outsourcing the other tasks like marketing and stuff. So I started with her Pinterest account 4 years ago, and we've just kind of taken it and ran with it, and it's been going great since then. So yeah, that's how I got started in it, and I realized it was a really fun project to work on.
Yeah.
And so I started taking on more clients, and now I have a business for it. So
look at Pinterest. It's like the gift keeps on giving.
Exactly.
I love it. So we're going to be answering all the top questions wherein it comes to Pinterest VAs and Pinterest managers. So get ready, grab your notebook. If hiring a Pinterest manager or VA is in your near future, you're not sure if it's right for you, you definitely want to keep watching. Okay, so my first question is, what is a Pinterest VA?
That's a great place to start. So a Pinterest VA or Pinterest manager is basically someone who will take care of the Pinterest marketing aspect of your business. So they'll create a Pinterest strategy unique to your business and based on your goals for Pinterest. So it's not just like, oh, one size fits all or kind of blanket strategy. You really have to take into consideration what your goals are for Pinterest and kind of what you want it to do for your business. So they can handle everything from pin creation, keyword research, writing pin descriptions and titles, scheduling your pins out, and board creation, optimizing your account, all those kind of things that really make your account in tip-top shape for Pinterest, and making sure things are also kept within Pinterest best practices.
Now, they're always changing, right?
They're always changing. So that's a really important aspect of it, that they keep your account within best practices and up to date with algorithm changes. For Pinterest managers who go a little above and beyond, or not necessarily above and beyond, but this is something that I like to include, is using the Pinterest Trends tool. That will help kind of show when your content is trending and when you should really be focusing on getting fresh pins out.
I love that you're mentioning this because I feel like every Pinterest expert has their specialty. I am all about seasonal and trending content. Like I say it like till I'm blue in the face. You gotta know when your keywords, like when to get started. You don't want to wait till the last minute. You want to make sure your content's up there before it starts trending up. Like guys, check out this video above about the 7 trending tools that you can check out. There's more than Pinterest trends, but show us more.
Yeah, it's super helpful to just plan out like when you see the spikes happening in what your content is related to, you want to get your fresh pin images for old content, or plan out, you can use this to plan your kind of like year of content planning, also to see when the spikes happen in your search for your search queries, when those are popular. And that'll make the most of getting your content on Pinterest so people can see it like at the right time. And then another thing that Pinterest VAs should be including is an analytics report each month. And I'll show you an example of that.
So 1 second. So when we're talking about like what a Pinterest VA does, the services that they offer, think about all the things that you're doing right now for your Pinterest account, including creating pins, pulling keywords, writing pin titles and descriptions, optimizing your profile, maybe creating board covers, all that stuff that can feel so time consuming. But it's not just that, it's also content planning, knowing the right time to create your content. Okay, so tell us about these analytics reports.
Okay, so I find them super helpful for myself, but also for the client. So I really like to go back to the analytics to see like what part of our strategy is working, what part might not be as, efficient on the account, like what do we need to change, all those things, and how is all of our time and effort going into Pinterest, like how is that reflective of their blog traffic or e-commerce or whatever their goals are for Pinterest. So I like to include a monthly report for my clients. So it basically kind of goes over their accounts, talks about outbound clicks, impressions, engagements, and this can occasionally change with Pinterest, making updates to all the data they collect and what it all means for your account. So that's kind of remains dynamic. But then we can I like to talk about like Google Analytics also, like what are their top blog posts for this time of year or upcoming blog posts, so they know we need to make fresh pin images for that. Their top click-through boards, their top pins for the month, and then planning ahead so we know kind of like based on last year, what content will be popular and what do we need to kind of update and refresh in order to make it still relevant on Pinterest.
I love this.
Yeah, the analytic reports are fun. And I find that a lot of clients like to use that for content planning also for the rest of the year kind of, or can refer back to it to see like what was helpful. Okay. And then lastly, Pinterest VAs or Pinterest managers should always be staying update on the Pinterest algorithm changes. Like we kind of mentioned before, they just happen so often and can really make an account take a nosedive if you're not paying attention to what is happening with Pinterest and the algorithm. So you really just you want someone who's staying on top of those basically.
Yeah. Like logging in, can see the trends,
spot
what's working, what's not working, and adjust. Because like when you are like a blogger or just a business person doing it all by yourself, it's really hard for you to stay on top of all the things, all the platforms and all the changes.
That's what I noticed actually when I first started working with my sister with her blog. I was like, wow, you guys have to do so many things like just for your blog, like, and then you still have to like market yourself somehow. So
and make money, right?
Yeah, and make money off it. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, there's got to be a way to like take some of those tasks and still make an impact on the business, but allow the blogger to have a little more time within their kind of like zone of genius in the creation mode and stuff.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I have because I see people using the terms interchangeably. So is a Pinterest VA the same thing as a Pinterest manager, or is a manager, just kind of like a step above? Because you would say you're a Pinterest manager, correct?
I would. And to me, it's kind of, so I've seen them used interchangeably all the time also. And so then I'm like, well, do people see them as the same thing, or do they see like manager a step above and VA kind of not quite as in the game as manager? But I kind of can relate it to my nanny career. I was a nanny for 12 years, and any nanny will tell you it'll frustrate them if you call them a babysitter instead of a nanny.
Oh,
so the babysitter's kind of there to entertain the kids, make sure they're safe, just kind of a little more surface level, where the nanny, I was super involved. I spent 45 hours a week with kids, planned like developmentally appropriate activities, saw what milestones were coming up to help them meet and all that. So in my head, it kind of seems like Pinterest VA is more of surface level, not quite as like deep in the Pinterest game as a Pinterest manager.
Yeah.
However, I don't know that I can say that's completely like a blanket statement, like Pinterest managers are better than Pinterest VAs or anything like that. Because I do hear them used interchangeably also. I think the biggest thing is just what goes behind their title. What's their background? What's their experience with the platform? You know, and what kind of services they offer. And it's really important for you to just do your research on the person you're thinking of hiring for taking over Pinterest.
Like you want to see client accounts, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of whether or not you're watching this video and you're like, okay, maybe I want a Pinterest VA or manager, like, how do you know you're ready to outsource Pinterest? Like, what does it come down to?
I think the biggest thing that I see from clients who are ready to outsource their Pinterest is a basic understanding that Pinterest is a long-term game, but you see the extreme value that it can bring for your business. And you just don't have the time to learn the platform, do all the research and strategy that goes behind marketing your business on Pinterest, and also staying up to date with all the changes. But because they see the value that Pinterest can bring to your business, they feel ready to hire out somebody to do that for them. Another obvious component is just that they can afford the monthly expense. So someone who's maybe just starting their blog or just starting their business might not be quite as ready to hire somebody out to do it if they're not bringing in consistent income or profit with their business. But if you're a blogger or business owner who has a steady stream of income or revenue coming in, and you just keep seeing growth and growth and growth over your business, then you're probably ready to hire that out to someone else to handle, so you can focus on the other money-making things of your business.
Yeah.
And lastly, I think another thing is you just have to be ready to trust the expert. So nobody likes to be micromanaged, but I also completely understand it's hard to let go of full control of your business. That's like your baby you grew, you know? So you just have, if you think you're ready to hire a Pinterest manager or Pinterest VA, just do a little check-in with yourself and make sure you're also ready to let go of a little bit of that control of your business and trust the expert that you've hired to do the job.
Yeah. Great advice. Love it. So if that sounds like you, maybe you should reach out to Jamie. Okay. More on that in a bit. So how much should a good Pinterest VA or manager cost? Like, what is that, sweet spot for, what have you seen or,
Yeah, that's a great question. I did a lot of research on this when I was at this point in my business trying to price out my packages and services. And I saw a lot that were falling within a range of like anywhere from $300 a month to $800 a month. And Pinterest managers typically work within monthly packages. So for example, a monthly package might include something like 15 custom pin images for your content, 5 fresh images a day, plus like managing your Tailwind communities, if that's applicable, writing the pin descriptions, kind of like everything we talked about, what a Pinterest VA does. So creating new boards when needing, optimizing your account, and then monthly, like, an hour of email support or something like that, or phone support, and an analytics report. So that might say cost you around like $400 a month or something. And then you might see a higher package that's maybe $700 a month. That's, you're getting 30 custom pin images, more fresh images out, or more fresh pins per day. So it kind of depends on, there's a range, usually a range of packages. So if you're publishing more content, like if you're putting out 3 blog posts each week, you might need a higher price package just because you're going to need more time invested into getting all that content on Pinterest also. Whereas if you're only blogging twice a month or once a week even, you'll probably tend towards the lower end of the price range because it's just a less amount of time that's spent on your account because of the lower amount of content.
I would assume that also includes depending where your account is. So maybe you've been blogging for years, but you're just getting started on Pinterest. So there's a lot of content someone needs to catch up on sharing, right? Like there's a backlog.
Yep.
And I think, like in my mind, the difference between like a VA duties and a manager duties is like, say, for example, you've had your account for a few years, you know Pinterest, like, you know what works for your account, and the VA, you're just telling them, do this, do that, do that. But the manager, to me, like has their manager hat on, and, you know, just like how you strategize, and it's very data driven, and you know what, you come up with a strategy for that account. And like, to me, that costs more than simply just saying, hey, design these graphics and schedule them.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. And yeah, it's whether if a client's coming to you kind of with a checklist of like, okay, this is what I always do on my account because I know it works, but I just need you to kind of like get it out there. That's different than like, you know, you or me taking over the account and being like, okay, this is what we think will work for the account because you haven't done it before. Like, let's see, like, and then kind of analyze that each month and make sure it's working versus like just doing the checklist thing. Like, that's a good point that you made also.
Yeah. So a good Pinterest VA/manager, you said around 300-400, and it could go all the way up to say 700 or 800, depending on how much content you have, you're creating, and how much support you need, really.
Yep. That's basically what I've seen the most of, kind of.
Okay, that's pretty good ballpark. So you can get started anyone for around $300-400 a month. And, you know, think about how much stress that's taking off of you.
Yep,
giving
exactly.
to someone else.
Exactly. Yep. And another thing I see a lot that often what's required is like a contract of 3 to 6 months to work with the Pinterest VA or manager, just because Pinterest is such a long-term game. You can't just give it all you got for a few weeks or a month and then have your traffic double or something like that. It really takes that long amount of time to see what's working and see your results. So that's often why a contract is required. So that's not out of the norm if you see that also.
Yeah, makes sense. You know, you can't just turn a ship around in a day.
Exactly.
Think about that ship that was stuck in the canal. Okay, think about that. And just picture that as your Pinterest account.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the best way to hire a Pinterest manager? You know, should we go to Facebook group? Should we ask a friend? Should we just Google it? Like, and in your answer, how have people found you?
Yeah. So I personally think the best way to hire or to, you know, find a Pinterest VA or manager is through a referral. So a great way to go about that is jumping into a Facebook group that you're familiar with, is like a quality Facebook group, whether it's based around your business, like a blogging one, or an entrepreneur-based Facebook group, or even like a virtual assistant group, and ask around. And you can post something that you're just, you know, I'm looking for an awesome Pinterest manager. Does anyone have any recommendations? And people love to give their opinions. So I'm sure you'll get plenty of options. Yeah. And you also might have some Pinterest managers that respond to that post as well. Another twist on this is that you can post in a Facebook group as a job opportunity. So in many groups, you would use the hashtag job op and provide the details of kind of what you're looking for. So, and you can also create like a Google form or something in Airtable to have specifically for Pinterest managers to fill out when you're gathering their information. Then you can kind of get what you're looking for right from the beginning, or get the information you need from the beginning. And personally, I spend a lot of time in Facebook groups related to bloggers. Yeah, that's how we found each other, right? And kind of just answering Pinterest questions and stuff like that. And I do see a lot of job opportunities posted like that. So if someone's needing help with Pinterest and they post it, I might reach out that way. Yeah. But yeah, I really like the referrals just because it's kind of, you've already vetted that person kind of, or whoever referred them to you has had a great experience. So that's always helpful too, just to establish trust right away.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want to have a bad experience.
Yes.
So when you're hiring, because something I noticed on your website is that, yeah, you actually have a invite to just chat with you, right? For a, is it a 15-minute call?
Yep, it's just a quick 15-minute kind of like discovery call just to talk about what they're looking for from Pinterest, kind of like their goals, why they want to use Pinterest, or what their experience has been so far, and kind of like how I can help them with it.
Yeah, so if you're interested, click that link. I'll put it down below. And I think it's really important as part of that hiring process to have a call, right? Like, for example, I'm hiring a VA and I was like, we need a face-to-face call. I need to know who you are, you know, because it is my baby, right? My blog is my baby. And I need to know, just like, you know, when you were a nanny, right? Can you imagine handing over your baby to someone whose face you haven't even seen?
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's super important to just establish a face-to-face contact. Like everything's done virtually these days. And if it's all through email, it just, you don't have that same personal touch. And I feel like it's just, you're missing that little bit of factor that helps kind of with the trust and everything like that, just to connect face-to-face like that.
Awesome. And one more thing I would say is maybe avoid hiring someone off of Fiverr, because it seems like a lot of the bad experiences, like people send me emails telling me, do you manage accounts? I'm like, no, sorry, but I know some awesome people. I'll send, like book a call with Jamie or, check out Kayla. Like these people are legit, right? But yeah, like they hired someone and things went awry, which brings me to my next question. Any red flags to avoid or be aware of? Like, what is a sure way to spot a fake Pinterest manager?
I think you made a good point about like Fiverr, and I've never used Upwork, but I've heard like horror stories from Upwork also. Not as much as Fiverr, but yeah, I wouldn't head there first for like doing your research on Pinterest to like find someone to do your Pinterest account. I think there's plenty of other ways that you can go about finding a good person besides that. As a Pinterest manager, I think one of the main skills that's necessary is organization. So as you're interacting with a potential Pinterest VA or manager, and you get the sense they're unorganized or untimely with communication or distracted, that would be a red flag for me. They should make you feel like your business is important to them and understand how important it is to you as well. And the success of your business is really important to them. And if they're a hot mess with their own business, they're probably going to be a hot mess with your business as well. So that's one thing I would pay attention to. Also, I think if it's a general VA who also handles a lot of other tasks and just offers Pinterest management as one of the 30 tasks they might offer to cover, I would be a little skeptical of that. I'm not knocking their skill set. Like it's great they can do so many things, but Pinterest can be a beast and really take time to get to know the platform, get to know what works, all those things. Like, that, Natalie.
And it's always changing. Yeah. So like I said, I'm hiring a VA, but I'm like, you're not touching my Pinterest.
Right. Totally. Like there's so much that goes into it that I'm like, how can you offer 30 other services and like actually know what's going on with Pinterest and your clients' accounts? So I think that's something to pay attention to, is kind of like, if they're solely focused on Pinterest, that might be a little more trustworthy to me versus like someone who's a little more generalized with their skills, and just wants to tack on Pinterest management as like another thing they say they do.
Because people are willing to pay for it, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, crazy. Any other red flags we should be aware of?
Those are the main ones I can think of. Do you have any that you've run into, Natalie?
Well, I was thinking like in terms of maybe even how you can check that someone, like I assume they should have testimonials. And if there is a testimonial on someone's site and you're unsure, I would reach out to that person and be like, hey, what has your experience been? Or look up that person's account on Pinterest. Like I've seen more like even in terms of people who are teaching Pinterest, where, their accounts aren't great. They don't even run their own account. Like to me, those are huge red flags. Like how can you be an expert in something when it's like your boyfriend doing it or, your team?
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing I think is kind of knowing how many clients, and I talk about this a little bit later, but kind of how many, you can always ask like, how many clients do you have right now or something when you're interviewing them? Because if they have, 40 accounts they say they manage, like how can they really spend all the time unless they have a huge team beneath them? But like, you know, if they're saying they do it all themselves, like that's probably not legit, and you probably don't want to go with that person.
Yeah. So like, even I just want to screen share this with you guys to kind of hammer home the point. I don't know who any of these people are. I'm literally just Googled, you know, Pinterest management on Fiverr, and all I'm just looking at is the prices. And I feel like you kind of pay what you get, you know?
Yep. I was going to say that when we we're talking about pricing, I was going to ask you, Natalie, what your thoughts were, because I feel like it is kind of like you pay for what you get kind of situation. Like if you're only looking for the lowest price, then you're probably going to get low quality work, and it's not going to serve you as a business owner at all. So I think it's not something you go into with the mentality of like, I want to outsource this, but I don't want to pay any more than I actually have to. So then you're probably not going to get, you know, the quality of work will probably be reflective in the price you pay for it.
And dangerous, right? Because if you're going for the cheapest, like this person is saying that they're okay, so say $50 US a month to manage your Pinterest account. Like it's dangerous because if they don't know what they're doing, you know, maybe they just learned it from Google. And a lot of the top ranking posts in Google on Pinterest management are outdated posts that have strategies that will get your account flagged as spam, or like it's the kiss of death. Like I know people who have had accounts that got flagged and they never recover.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And then you're sending money to these people that you don't even know, and they're just tanking your account. So yeah, you want to be really aware of that.
Definitely. Which is why I think it's super important for you as the account holder to understand Pinterest before you outsource it. Because if you don't understand at least the basic concepts of what is working and what's not working, generally, you cannot spot that they're messing up your account, right? You won't know because you're like, oh yeah, they're doing all these repins. It's great. But you're just like, no, that's very bad.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Just have like a general understanding. Like you don't need to know super in depth of everything about Pinterest, but you do want to have a general understanding of the platform and kind of like how it works, just so, you know, if you accidentally hire someone who is not going to be the best to manage your account, you can kind of spot the red flags early on and catch them, and hopefully find someone else who will help recover your account if needed.
Definitely. Love that. I don't want you guys to get any stress about this at all. No. So this just kind of leads to the next question. It was just like, how do you know if your Pinterest manager is legit? And I think we've covered it, you know, like check their testimonials, make sure it's a referral, reach out, ask questions, how many accounts they're managing, and what their experience is, you know?
Yeah. That's why I love using referrals so much, or I love that as like a process of finding someone who's going to help in your business. Because it kind of cuts out that question of like, are they legit? Because you can really ask the person who, if you know someone who's hired a Pinterest manager, they're recommending them to you, then you kind of know, and this person has had a great experience with them, then you know they're legit. And you probably want to do, you know, your own research on them just to make sure you feel comfortable with it. But you can also ask the person who referred them to you kind of like what their experience has been, like what have they liked about working with them, and those kind of things, just to really make sure that you feel like it would be a good match for you also. And a couple other questions you might want to ask is, how long have they been doing Pinterest management for? And you might be speaking with someone who is just starting out in their business, and, you know, but they can still be great. You just need to know kind of like what you're looking for in their answers, like make sure they can provide sufficient evidence in their answers of your questions, that they understand the platform totally. How do they plan on creating their strategies, stuff like that. So yeah, kind of like what their experience with Pinterest is so far. How many clients do they currently have, like we talked about. How do they stay up to date with algorithm changes and updates to the platform? Because if they don't have an answer to that, they're probably not doing that, which would be the huge red flag. We don't want that. Do they have a method of tracking growth on the account? And that goes back to kind of like the analytics report, or maybe they do a monthly meeting, like screen sharing your account with you. But you just want to know that they have a way to report kind of like what's happening on your account. And then like you brought up case study examples. And again, if you're speaking with a Pinterest VA or manager who's brand new, they might not have this.
Maybe they have their
evidence
own
yet,
account,
but-
right? Like
Right,
that could
yeah.
also be, to
Mhm.
me,
Or
that's
like
like
a test
valid
account.
experience. You know?
Yep. As long as they're kind of like showing that they interact with the platform and they're testing things out and they can prove that they have the knowledge, then I think it's a good idea to see that kind of stuff.
Love it. So you guys know how to find a good Pinterest manager, or you could just take my referral, Jamie, save the time.
Yeah, that'll work too.
Right? Honestly, like my, new VA who I'm hiring, she was a referral, and I didn't want to have to go through the stress of posting and replying to people. And it was just kind of this thought I had been putting out into the universe. I want an amazing VA. And I literally just asked someone and she was like, she's awesome. And she was awesome. And that was that. Like, I didn't have to stress about it. So I think, once you have the mindset of, yes, I want an amazing manager, I do believe that you'll find someone, or, save time and hire this one.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is kind of like with the Facebook group postings, if you do post in there, you could get, like 50 comments on your post or something, which might be like completely overwhelming. You're like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, just shut this down.
This reminds me, what is it with, there's certain groups where someone literally posts a question like, what's an idea pin? Hey, you know what? You can hire me. I'm a Pinterest manager. Here's my link. And I'm just like, they're just asking a question.
Right. I know, just like provide some value. Like, don't be so thirsty. Just, just calm down about it and help people out.
Right? Have you noticed that though?
Yes.
It's like, what is with these people?
Or I've actually seen like on the same day, the same person kind of like have a copy paste response, like, oh, I'm a Pinterest manager and I have openings. Like, let me know if you, or like message me if you want a response to just a question, like, what's an idea pin? They'll like have that. And I'll see it in different Facebook groups on the same day. They'll just have their copy paste response of like, oh, I'm a Pinterest manager. I can help you with that. Like, just answer the question, like help a sister out, that's all they need.
It's totally true. And like, I would say that if you are a Pinterest manager or an aspiring one and you're watching this, give someone a really detailed response. And sometimes I do this for my YouTube videos. Like, if there's literally a video I made that answers their question, I'll be like, hey, and if you want more info, I literally just posted a video about this. Happy to send it to you. Like, but I answered their question first. Like, that's just like the PS.
Right. Exactly.
Amazing. Okay. So my next question for you is, what do you offer your clients? Like, if somebody is like, I'm interested in this, Jamie, what are the offerings? And yeah, just generally like what you offer and how I know they can book that discovery call with you.
Yeah, they can always book a discovery call through my website. I offer organic monthly Pinterest management. So I don't deal with like the ads. I just like to focus on organic traffic. So monthly management, account setups and or optimization of current accounts if you're kind of struggling with making sure your account is up to date and up to Pinterest standards. And then for someone who might not be fully ready to outsource their Pinterest, I offer strategy sessions to kind of take a deep dive into your account and determine some next steps to move forward with kind of strategizing for your account, but not necessarily taking over the whole management side of it.
I love that. So they can like test and try out if, they like your advice and it works for them. And then when they're ready, and in a way, they do some of the work for you, right? Because then by the time they come back to you, they've like, checked all the boxes.
Yep, hopefully.
Love it. Amazing. Okay, Jamie, this has been amazing. How can we connect with you?
You can find me at my website at shanksocial.com or on Instagram, and my handle there is Jamie_ShankSocial. And if you're a blogger in Facebook groups, you might see me hanging out in there quite a bit, helping people with Pinterest there.
Awesome. You're going to want to click this Let's Chat button. Thanks so much, Jamie. This has been amazing. We hope that if you watch this, all your questions about Pinterest VAs, whether they're right for you, if it's time to get a manager, have been answered. So be sure to reach out. I'll put all of her links down below so that you can connect. And if you need help, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to press that subscribe button, because I love being your Pinterest coach and I've got more interviews just like this coming your way. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
This has been so fun. See y'all in the next video.